Cool. Okay, so my presentation is where the hell is LS and how to survive on Windows when you're used to Linux.
Blasphemy!
And so this can be a huge time sink. I mean, it's how far down the rabbit hole do you want to go? You can start out and just do some very basic things like getting the new core utils running on Windows. You can go as far as sideloading the Linux kernel and then running the Linux kernel and the Windows kernel in cohabiting virtual machines. I'll get a little bit into that later in the presentation. So I'm going to start out with some basic, like very quick things you can do to get like immediate gratification in terms of getting your core GNU utils on here. And then as we go throughout the presentation, I'm going to get into more and more advanced ways you can go depending on how Unixy you want to make Windows. So the first thing is Unix utils. And this is a very useful thing. I've been running this for quite a while. It's just a simple Windows port of the common utils, like ls. It has a bunch of different ones that I'll start showing. And the great thing about this is that there are no dependencies. They're just the source code just recompiled to run on Windows and just basically rewritten to use the Windows API. The only downside of this is it hasn't been updated since 2003. So some of the utilities are a little bit old. But you know, if we're just wanting to have ls on a system or cat or grep, it works fine. So here I have a Windows system running.
Does it have diff also?
I believe it does have diff.
Yes, it does. Looking at the website.
And this virtual machine. Going to be a little bit of a okay, this is good. Okay, so here I have a terminal running. You can see I just have the very basics. I have ls, and it goes. Let's see, I have full ls. I have the patch command. I have a diff, and then basically anything you use day to day. I think I have a word count, which I wanted a lot under Windows, is the WC command. And this is a great little package.
Well, ls is not part of that package. There's a bunch of stuff.
It's possible there's both a Unix utils and a Unix utils update. Anyone know how to make Unity mirror screens?
Go to the command line, hit Xlander.
Okay. Unix utils. So here's a list of all the Unix utils we have. So if we scroll down,
Yeah, I think I was just looking at the updates.
okay. Yeah, there we go. ls.exe.
Yeah.
And so this is a great way. Yeah, you can go to Unix utils and you get unixutils.zip, and then if you want, there's also unixutils.update.zip.
But UNX for Unix?
UNX utils,
yeah.
yes.
So you just put them in your own folder and
yeah, so
set your path?
Exactly. So I'll go ahead and show that. So you have a Unix utils.zip and you just extract that.
Using a shell.
Yeah, the shell is not the best. We'll get into that. The shell is lacking. It basically just uses the Windows command shell, and so you do get the core utils that you want, but you don't get all the nice shell like tab complete. You're stuck with the sort of the Windows crappy tab complete and stuff like that. So one of the first things you're going to want to do is replace that.
Crap, there's a lot of stuff.
Yeah, so you basically just extract it, and you get this directory, user, local, wbin, and here's all the exe files. And so if you wanted to right now, you could go ahead and cd into this directory and execute each of these commands. But if you want it to be available anywhere, you're going to go and you're going to add it to the Windows tab. So that's a little bit hidden.
Cool.
Properties, advanced settings,
Yeah, they moved it again.
environmental variables. And here you have a path, it's exactly like the sort of the Linux path, where you have a place with where you put all your exe files.
Except for their slashes are backwards.
Yeah, their slashes are backwards. So you use semicolons to separate them, so that's nice.
I think that a lot of those utilities will take both slashes, either
No,
forward
some
or
will
back.
take it.
Even on Windows, it'll take forward slashes, I think.
Yeah.
I've used that wbin for years as well,
Mhm.
so.
Okay, so then you just put a semicolon and put it on there. Okay, so going a step up, we have Sigwin and MinGW. And MinGW stands for minimal GNU on Windows, and it's actually it's a fork of Sigwin, and it basically provides a bunch of it basically provides the sort of a POSIX-like layer. It's not exactly a full layer, but it provides a familiar environment for a bunch of Linux tools. You can usually take the source code for Linux applications and then just compile them with this MinGW. And in most cases, it'll run. There's a couple of things related to thread forking that doesn't play nicely. But it's a great way to get a bunch of tools on Windows. And they also provide MSys, where MinGW is just sort of the environment for compiling Linux applications. MSys is actually all the core utils compiled to run on MinGW. We also have Sigwin, and so like I said, MinGW is a port of Sigwin, or MinGW, sorry, is a fork of Sigwin back when Sigwin was really young, I think back in maybe 2003. And Sigwin differs from MinGW in that Sigwin provides a full POSIX compatibility layer. So whereas MinGW just re-implements a lot of things for the Windows API, Sigwin provides a full environment. So that means you can actually get things like the KDE desktop environment or GNOME running on Windows through Sigwin. And both MinGW and Sigwin come with their own package manager. So if I go here, I'm not going to go through the full Sigwin setup, just because I don't want to trust the wireless.
It's slow.
But I will show at least the basics. Okay, so it's selecting here. You're going to go just download a package manifest. Okay, here we have all the packages that you can install through Sigwin. And so you can see they're grouped by category. You can go through and click any of the ones you want. So it has things like Vim, it has Emacs, and I think if, let's see, let's see, I think I can search here.
What are you looking for? What do you type in?
Maybe uncheck hide obsolete packages on the lower left.
Obsolete.
Yeah.
What do you check? What's he looking for?
KDE? That's what he put in.
He was
There's
looking
a
at
whole
KDE.
there's a whole
Uppercase.
category called KDE.
Oh, then maybe it's not finding it.
Oh,
Okay.
uppercase. Interesting.
So that's fairly current, right?
Yeah, it's fairly current. So I checked the Vim version is 7.3, which is the most up to date. And then it also has the GNOME packages. I'm not sure if it's GNOME Shell or if it's GNOME Classic. But at that point, you really probably should just run a VM rather than running GNOME on Windows. It's pretty Linux-like, but there's a few incompatibilities when you're using it. It just makes it a little bit awkward to use.
But how does it map the differences between Windows and X?
So there's a Cygwin X.
Okay.
Which if you install KDE or GNOME or any sort of Linux program like that, it'll install Cygwin X.
So it's
which is its own, I
Cygwin
believe
X
it's its own
server.
X server under the
Okay.
Okay, so that was Cygwin. Then we also have MinGW. So I actually already have that installed in the system. The installation takes a bit of bandwidth. Actually, it takes very little bandwidth, but it's a bunch of bandwidth on this wireless.
Yeah. Same deal. You have an X server in MinGW.
MinGW, I don't think there's an X server built in. You can get your own X server for Windows and then target it at that. For MinGW and MSys, though, they're really just the core utils and the command line tools. And MinGW is what I personally run. Okay, so this is MinGW. And we also have MSys right here. So MSys is the actual implementation of the command line tools on the MinGW platform. So by default, it comes with this right here. And so this gives you your basic tools. Here, this terminal, let's see, is this, yeah, so this is the default MinGW terminal. It also comes with a couple other things, one of which is RxVT. And so this is a way you can escape from the terrible Windows terminal and get a decent RxVT terminal. So this provided some nice things like
So it's like an X term.
an X term. It reads like I think you point at bash and it'll read the bash RC that you have, so you can transfer all your configs. MinGW also has a Vim port, so you can run Vim on here. Although, as I'll show later, I actually prefer running a gvim native on Windows rather than Vim through the MinGW runtime. And so if I go back up to MSys, or back up to MinGW,
So this is really similar to Cygwin, that it's its own environment that you're running.
It's its own environment.
Yeah,
The only
okay.
difference is Cygwin provides like a full POSIX layer, whereas MinGW just basically maps calls. It's almost the same as wine, the concept of wine. That it's not like a full VM or layer, it just maps calls in terms of other calls.
But to run the MinGW commands, you have to run the MinGW shell.
You have to run the MinGW shell.
The WBin you showed, though, you don't, after the commands run natively in Windows.
Exactly. So that's the difference. Unix utils
Yeah.
is all native, whereas this is
Yeah.
sort of through a layer. Okay. Okay. And so here we have MinGW get, which is a lot like apt-get. And so if you, by default, it comes with a very basic set of utils. It comes with your basic core utils. I think it also comes with bin utils as well. And then if you can use MinGW get to say MinGW get install bin, and it'll go to MinGW's servers, download Vim and install it for you. You also have to do that if you want to get a RxVT, which I showed earlier. You just say MinGW get install RxVT, and install it, gets all the dependencies for you.
So is there like a MinGW get list or something? It'll give you a list of all the things.
There's
that
a
are out there?
search.
Search?
Yeah, and I think there actually is also a list. It's a limited usefulness because it lists every utility it has, which can take a while.
So you got to get grep
Right,
and
exactly.
then you're okay.
How come you prefer MinGW over Cygwin?
So I find when I do Cygwin, it's almost a matter of self-restraint. So I find whenever I use a Sigwin, I start saying, ooh, I can get this and this and this, and before I know it, I installed like GNOME or something like that. Right? And then the problem with that is I find that for certain things, it's not 100%, right? So you might be able to get GNOME, but you might not be able to get, I don't know, like gparted or something like that, right? So you have a very limited subset. And so if I'm at the point where I'm going to be installing GNOME or something like that, I'll just run a full-fledged VM. Whereas Unix util, or sorry, with MinGW, it's a much more restricted set. And so I don't know, maybe that's a backhanded compliment.
Unless you set up the virtual machine to have full access to the hard drive, which sort of defeats the purpose of virtual machine. Sigwin, you can just go ahead and run any of the utils through, your entire hard drives are mounted in Sigwin.
Right. So I guess what you're saying is that...
So you can grep any Windows file, for instance, that you wanted to. Whereas in a virtual machine, you couldn't do that.
Right. That's true. You can do the same with MinGW. You go and you mount, you hit all your drives. Although you could also mount your Windows drives in a VM if you want to do via shared drives. So there's all sorts of crazy hacky things you could do. Okay, the next thing we have is co-Linux and AND-Linux. And these are really fascinating. Unfortunately, I'm not able to put up a demo because they only work for 32-bit Windows installs.
Oh.
64-bit Windows installs. So it really makes it less useful. They're actively working on 64-bit installs, but until they do, I don't have any 32-bit machines. And you can't run it on any sort of 64-bit machine at all. So you see here I have a screenshot of a XFCE running natively on Windows. You can see this is like the Tango icon. It's running GTK applications. And so what this actually does is it does some incredibly complex stuff that I don't fully understand. But it basically takes the modified Linux kernel and it modifies it so it can run as a Windows driver. And then it actually, the Windows kernel and the Linux kernel both access the hardware at the same time, right? So it's sort of, they're running in parallel. And I think it's called a covariant virtual machine is the technical name for it. And so then, rather than having a VM where you have a sort of you have like a host machine and a guest machine, and the guest machine runs in limited sort of rights. It runs its own little sandbox. You actually have both of these running out full on their own, accessing their hardware, and then actually competing for hardware resources. And they have to do some tricky things to make it so you don't completely bork your system. But they basically have the hardware is accessed by both simultaneously, but then hardware interrupts are proxied through the Linux kernel to the Windows kernel. So it all sort of works nicely. And then, so that's co-Linux. And then AND-Linux is actually Ubuntu running in co-Linux. So they have,
Wow.
yeah, so you have the Ubuntu and you have the default Ubuntu installed with, you have Nautilus, I think you have Firefox. So you can run Windows Firefox and Linux Firefox right next to each other. And you'll see that one is the Ubuntu version, one is the Windows version.
Can one run wine under this?
I see no reason why not.
It's your funeral.
You could use wine to target your Windows partition and run that through there.
Yeah, just don't update any files. Wow.
And you can run on the programs that are already running in Windows.
These are their own projects, I presume.
Right.
Co-Linux is, I've never heard of it before.
Right, co-Linux is its own project, and Linux runs on top of co-Linux.
And Linux runs on top of Co, and that just makes it Ubuntu.
Right, it's basically an Ubuntu install that runs on co-Linux.
What Linux is co-Linux running?
Co-Linux, I think it's just the modified Linux kernel. I don't think it's actually a full OS. Like it doesn't come with all like the
You need to do
applications.
both of them in order for it to run well? Is that?
You run AND-Linux, and AND-Linux comes with co-Linux.
But if you just run co-Linux, what do you get? I guess.
What do you get?
So you get a shell?
Like, do you
or
get a shell? Do you get commands? Do you get?
That's a good question. I'm not 100% sure.
Well,
Right,
yeah,
prob-
maybe you need one, you need and Linux to make, I don't know, that was my first thought too, is, for Linux.
Maybe and Linux makes it graphical.
Right, we're gonna take a look at it.
That was,
So you're showing there and Linux, right?
This
Which
is and Linux.
Yeah, which is on top of Linux.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a really kind of awkward name.
Co-Linux and Linux.
Good.
I went with the
Should say
ampersand
with.
for a reason.
Right.
Oh.
Yeah. Exactly.
Okay. So this is the
Cooperative.
co-Linux. Like I mentioned, unfortunately, it hasn't been updated for 64 bits, so I can't actively run it. But I did run it on I ran and Linux on a Pentium N like 4 or 5 years ago. It didn't work too well then, but it's been actively updated.
Screenshots on the left, maybe.
What was that, James?
I was just gonna say there's some screenshots on the left.
So it looks like we might just get a simple terminal, or we at least get a.
Server.
Yeah, like the character mode of, for installing like a server mode
Okay,
or something.
gotcha. Yeah.
So it looks like it gives you a Debian.
So okay, so
Yeah, Debian.
yeah, Debian. Okay, so it does come with a full shell and login capabilities.
Open SSH,
Yeah, Apache.
SSH server. At.
Yeah, I guess once you get the Linux Linux kernel running, there's no reason you can't install basically any software.
and this gives you full access to your Windows disk system, is that?
Right, so it's actually running in parallel with your Windows system. So you'll be in Windows on your Windows desktop. And if you're running co-Linux, you'll get this shell, which basically it's a Linux system running in parallel. Wow. It's almost like a VM, but there's no like virtual hardware. It's all using your actual hardware.
And there's no real protection.
Does it have access to do each system have access to the other's disk space and files and stuff like that? Or is it
same.
Yeah, it's the same.
They share the
Same
file
same
system.
space, yeah.
And so it's using whatever file system. Okay. Is that
Using NTFS.
what they use?
So co-Linux is an application under Windows here.
That's basically how it works out, right? So it's
So you do boot Windows and then
You do
you
boot
run
Windows
co-Linux
and
on as an app on it. Sounds like.
right. So I think it's something that starts up alongside
Okay.
Windows as well. I don't think it's like an actual app.
Pretty cool
If I
though.
remember correctly.
Yeah, I've never heard of it. Yeah, heard of it.
I'm not sure I have a need for it, but it's kind of cool.
Right. Yeah. This is definitely getting into the deep rabbit hole sort of thing. Like how deep do you want to go?
Right.
Okay. And so. My last thing is I'm just going to talk about some software helpers. So basically, how can you make Windows a little bit more like Ubuntu or whatever OS you're running, whatever Linux OS. So the first one I'm going to talk about is Ninite. So let me just go ahead and go here. Okay, so this is a great way when you have a new Windows system that you were just handed, basically probably at work, because that's the only time we ever use Windows. You want to install a whole bunch of software right off the bat. So you might want to install, say, like Pigeon or Thunderbird or any of the applications that make you feel at home. So I think they have a whole bunch of ones like, if I scroll down.
Is this like a package manager for Windows?
It's almost like a package manager. So it's I mainly use it for just a one-time install. And then usually other Windows, which we get the applications keep themselves up to date. I think there's update functionality if you pay for it, but
Especially when you can update for Linux.
so they have about 100 programs or so. So then they have, you want PuTTY, which is a good SSH client, which I'll get into a little bit later. So basically what you do, they have Python if you want an easy way to install Python on Windows. So say I select PuTTY and 7-zip here. Then you download a joint installer. Look through all these windows and X screens. Okay, so you can see here, then it launched 9x, which I already have both of these installed. But if I wanted to, I could. That's the installer.
Yeah.
When I could just go and I'll download, install both of these all at once, and it goes through, and you never have to deal with any sort of Windows install shield. It just chooses the same default. It doesn't choose to install any browser toolbars or anything like that. It basically gets you just the things you want. So I'll go ahead and cancel this.
So if you're installing something like Tortoise and you want or like WinMerge or something, does it install like plugins, or does it do like full installs, or does it do just like whatever the default is?
It's whatever the default is. Is WinMerge, is that one of these ones on here?
I don't know, but it's a great program.
WinMerge? Okay. Well, I can give it a shot. Is it a large program? Do you know?
No, it's not that
30
big.
megs, maybe.
30 megs will take a half hour
That's
here.
not
to
large.
load.
That's a guess. I
That's
don't know.
large on this
I
one,
don't know.
unfortunately. So I know for PuTTY it'll install everything. It installs every PuTTY related tool. So you get like Pageant and PSCP and P-Link and stuff like that. So I suspect for WinMerge, it installs the core WinMerge system. It doesn't install any plugins unless those plugins come with the default WinMerge install.
What is WinMerge?
Oh, sorry, 3 megs.
WinMerge is basically a graphic program that allows you to compare two files. It gives you side by side the two files, highlights the differences, and you can easily move, update one side to the other side and save them.
It also works with directories.
Like a graphical diff?
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
so
a really nice
kind of,
Windows.
yeah, okay.
it's like virtual diff that works for a bunch of files in
Yeah.
directory as well.
Files within directories or
Right,
data
so say
or
compare
just
these
files.
two directories or compare these two files.
Okay.
It's a nice way. Okay, so that's a great way to get started and install, say, PuTTY, which will bring us to our next thing. So through these tools like Cygwin or MinGW, you can install OpenSSH, which is a great way to just use SSH into a system. I find myself using PuTTY more often than not, though, just because it has a very friendly way of being able to configure. It's pretty powerful, and then it also has some things like I think it does exporting as well if you hook it up to an X server. So it's a great way to get all that stuff configured.
Which X server do you use?
I don't actually run X on Windows.
Okay.
But I think Cygwin X is probably the one that's used the most out there. Okay. So if I go, this is PuTTY right here. It's pretty easy to get started. Just the default SSH client. So where the whole PuTTY ecosystem really gets interesting is that it gives you a way to do key management, and then the key management, like a private and public key management. Then it'll integrate with a lot of other applications. So then it'll work with PuTTY. It also works with Tortoise Git if you're using Git for your source control. And so I'll go ahead and walk through that a little bit. Okay, so we have Pageant is already running. Okay. So Pageant is the key management thing down here. You can see down here in the tray icon, in the tray area, I have Pageant running as a tray icon. And let's see, I can add a key. So here I have my personal key right here. It's in the PuTTY private key file format, which is its own PuTTY format. So how you set this up is you go here,
PuTTY Gen?
PuTTY Gen, yeah. And basically, you can go and you can file You can load your SSH key from your Linux system. Then once you run that, you basically click generate, and it creates a PuTTY private key that you then just save somewhere. This is basically like the SSH key agent under Linux.
So you have to upload your SSH private key into this, so it
Right.
uses your private key. I assume you can generate a new one if you want.
Yeah, you can. I believe that's an option in the PuTTY gen. Or you could create your own
So
SSH key.
it's like SSH keygen.
Right.
PuTTygen, yeah.
But it also handles the translation of formats. Okay, so let me go ahead and add this key. And then when I run here, I can go to SSH off, point out my key, which it looks like I've already done. And now I'm on our system.
Without putting a password
Sorry?
in. Without putting a password in.
Right, because because of this agent.
Because you're, yeah.
You could have specified the user ID too on that first window, and it wouldn't even stop and log in. It
Oh,
just
yeah,
goes right through.
that's a good point.
Yeah, on that PuTTY interface.
Nice.
That is. That's really nice. I never looked further into PuTTY to realize it had key management.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff.
I use PuTTY a lot, but I mean,
Yeah.
that BSCP.
Yeah, there are a ton of things you can do here. Here's the X11 forwarding I was talking about.
Oh yeah.
And you set up tunnels and stuff too?
Yeah, you can set up tunnels to work for firewalls.
No longer free.
Yeah, it's a pretty impressive climb.
So if you've already got X forwarding turned on some Linux server that I'm running out there, I can use this just like I do an SSH -X
Yep.
from the command line, and it will
As long as
do
you have
the X
X.
forwarding with the graphical output.
Well, you still need an X server on your laptop.
Yeah.
You
You
got-
need to have it.
You
Yeah,
got nothing
but
without
it's
an
going
X
to
server.
forward to your X server. Yeah.
Which is why
so,
I said.
Right, it'll forward to the
Still
Windows
Windows
X server.
Yeah, yes.
You need
Yeah.
something like VNC as well. on that.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, so let's see. What else do I have? Oh, so GVim. So just go to go to Vim. I think it's what, vim.org or wherever the Vim website is. You can just download it for Windows. And so if you download, the nice thing about downloading the Windows install version rather than using the version from MinGW or Cygwin is that it has some nice Windows integration. So if I'm here and I have a
Plus, you don't have to run the environment to get to it.
right, yeah. So I have a text document,
Yeah, vim.org.
and I can say edit with Vim, and it pops up my Vim instance, and so that's a great way to just do sort of ad hoc file editing. And this uses the vimrc. You can just copy over your vimrc from your Linux command, and it works just fine. Okay, we also have Enso. And so Enso is interesting. This is just a one that I personally like. So let's see, hopefully this will work in this window mode. Yeah, cool. All right. So it basically provides almost like a D menu-like system for Windows, or like the Ubuntu Unity menu. And so you just hold a modifier. I have it defined as caps lock. And then you can say open and say Google, for example. And this works. You can train it to do anything you want. So basically, taking Windows, which is GUI driven, and making it so you can very easily make your own sort of command line tools on Windows. And so I think, say, if I wanted to go to, let's say, distro launch, you can say learn as open. So the thing I currently have open, distro. And I should be able to say open. Or let's see. Oh, I have to select this, I think. Learn as open distro. And I can say open distro, and we'll open it. And so you can have this launch any sort of program you want. Open. I was going to default to Open Explorer for this. And you can make this have any sort of custom command you want. This also has some nice integration for like it'll integrate with a calculator and just make it Windows a lot smarter. Basically, give you a decent command line on Windows. And I guess speaking of a decent command line, you can talk about replacing this terrible excuse. Yeah, this thing. So this is the default Windows command line, and it's pretty terrible in terms of tab completion. And there are a couple ones out there. I mentioned RxBT that installs as part of MinGW, and there's also an open source one called Console 2. Console 2 is really popular out there, and that just provides a decent terminal emulator. The one I personally use is MinTTY, which is part of MinGW. And so that's actually this one right here that I've been using. And so this provides everything that you would normally think. You have a basic tab completion, just feature for your shell.
History.
Yeah, history.
Yeah, it has a history.
Oh, that's wonderful.
It's one of the features I miss the most.
And then it has some decent, you have your copy and paste configuration. You can set like how it identifies itself. And that's really useful when you're running these applications, like MinGW and Sigwin applications. And I think, let's see, is that it? Oh, I guess it's probably worth mentioning that Tortoise Git is also really great on Windows. If you're doing Git development, install Tortoise Git, and as part of that, it'll install the command line Git, which then just runs from your command line.
Do you have any problems with Tortoise Git corrupting files on there?
No, I don't think so. So back in the day, like in 2004, Tortoise SVN was terrible about that. The Tortoise SVN would corrupt files all the time. Tortoise Git, I think, I haven't had an issue with.
So putting new lines in places where they weren't before. And
So when you
screws up the repository.
when you do install Tortoise Git, there's a configuration option of how it handles new lines. So like you can say check out when you check out a file, use Windows. It checks out as Windows and new lines. And then when you check in, it automatically makes all these Windows new lines back into Unix new lines. So you don't have these dips where it's like a massive diff when you only change one file. So is that different from what you're seeing?
It's corrupting libraries. I don't have a clue why. Yeah.
So does anyone have any, I guess that's basically the end of my formal presentation. I think we open up and talk about what people currently use. If you have any useful software helpers.
So I don't know it's current. It looks like it's probably pretty stale at this point. One time I used damn small Linux. And it's, it's media based, so you just load the directories onto your PC and you can run it there without any other software or install or anything. And it's real small, so you just throw it on a USB or just download it because it's small enough.
I think even there are a lot of instructions for making Ubuntu USB keys as well. You can. I think if you just take the default Ubuntu install disk, put it on a key. I mean, since Ubuntu it's a live environment, you get a nice bootable Ubuntu system on it.
Yeah, well, this is the damn small Linux is not even necessarily bootable. You can run it right off the USB in Windows.
Oh, really? So
yes.
It's installed like in QEMU?
It's not install. It's you run it. It's executable, right?
Okay. But it's a virtual machine basically under the hood, right? Of some type. like QMU?
Well, no, I think it, they've mapped all the system calls. So it basically works with including, like rides right on top.
I thought it just mounted the Windows disk when you do that. But like when you boot off a CD or a USB stick, it'll boot Linux, but it'll mount the Windows drive so you can get to the files and whatnot. But you're still just running Linux. You're not running Windows simultaneously.
Okay, so there's multiple things you can do, right?
Yeah.
Right, for what he's doing, he's actually running the program. And I remember this, I think. Because there was also, I think they started off with running it as a screensaver or something. Is that right?
I don't remember that, but yeah, it's just, real simple to just, start executing it right from a file, basically.
Right.
Cool. Thanks. One of the things I've stumbled upon in Windows 7 is the PowerShell.
Oh, yeah.
Is that anything we should be interested in?
PowerShell is interesting. I mean, one of the immediate wins is it gives you the ls command finally.
Really?
Yeah, so you can type ls into the dirt. But what the PowerShell is it basically exposes the .NET API via the command line.
Right. It's like an object-oriented shell.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's very, very verbose. So just for like typical day-to-day duties, you wouldn't want to do it.
Kind of takes me back to like JCL or something. It's a little weird.
Yeah,
Well, it's like a batch file on steroid kind of thing. I mean, you can do a lot more. You've actually got command substitution where you can execute a command and put it back in a variable. I wrote a couple PowerShell batch files 6 months ago for a customer. So
PowerShell is the sort of thing where you can use PowerShell to implement the new core utility if you wanted to, right? Since it's the .NET API, so you could implement applications and do word
You have
counts
access to
and
the
do-
whole API then. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Not something
So
I feel like getting into.
it's interesting. It's okay for like one-off scripts if
Yeah.
you need to stay like in the Windows environment.
yeah, I think it was mainly for the .NET programmers and stuff to be able to write scripts instead of the old batch files. It's
So
got
you-
for looping and all sorts of things like that.
So
You
there's-
need to do that.
So just for casual command line stuff, there's no benefit to using that over like command.exe. Okay.
I thought one of the sales pitches they had in Microsoft was anything you can do with the GUIs, you can do with PowerShell. And they said, hey, there's a system where you go through all the menus and all the wizards and all of that.
Oh.
And it says, okay, what did I do? And it gives you the line so you can put that in the batch file.
Oh.
Well, that's
I think that'd be pretty useful. I've never heard of that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Excellent.
Great, thanks,
Thank you very much.